All right. Hey, everyone. It's Comic Artist Pro Secrets. My name's Ethan Van Sciver, 26-year veteran of the comic book industry, world's most charming, elegant, eloquent, and yet humble man. Great big Star Wars fan, a trusted member of the media. And I'm joined here by another trusted member of the media, the incredible Doug Ernst.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I just got done with Robert Williams' channel, so I just kind of leapfrogged over here, and we're ready to go. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. When you're running a campaign, you've really got to kind of get around and it's hard. It's like I'm not running an active campaign right now. I just have a Cyberfrog in demand store, so I'm just kind of not working as hard on a campaign as I normally do. When you're actually doing a campaign, it's nothing but nonstop work. It's like running a political campaign. So you have to get around. You have to do stuff like this. We got some people in the chat here. Jabba the Cuck says, make Ethan humble again. Don't make me any more humble than I already am. Jay Dahl, emotionally exhausted, says, hi, Uncle Ethan. And another Doug. And then not the Doug Tenaple, the Dirtworm Doug Tenaple emoji. FP Sunny says, get him, Doug, again. Oh, it's Ernst. Everyone's excited to see Doug Ernst tonight. Girthy Gamer SD, hello. Raging Goblin. A lot of people, Doug, I open up my channel for channel memberships. So if you look at the chat, you're going to see a lot of names that are in green now. And next to them, they have the famous soy boy emoji. Have you seen the soy boy emoji?
I have not seen the soy boy emoji. Oh, here we go. I'm going into the live right now, so it wasn't showing up initially. So I'm in there. So
okay,
I got it.
Yeah. Everyone who's in green has the soy boy emoji next to their name. And it just means that they've been a member of the channel for less than a month. Once they stay for more than a month, I believe next month they become Cecil.
There you go.
I had like Cecil, Cecil. What do they call it? I guess just icons next to their names. And when you guys join the channel, and thank you, we're getting some new members here. Matt Horkin just joined. When you guys join the channel, you get access to I think 21 emojis, and I'm going to make a few more as well. A lot of people excited about seeing Doug. All right, so I'm just going to get right into it. Doug, I think, and you correct me on this, but you might be the first real ComicsGater. I think your work as a blogger, capturing what was happening at Marvel Comics, preceded even Captain Cummings, preceded all of these other guys. You were chasing down characters like what's his name, the Spider-Man guy that's
Dan Slott.
Dan Slott was your arch enemy for the longest time, and so therefore I think when we say OG ComicsGate, we're referring to you for the most part, right?
That's one of those nebulous sort of questions where I'm always hesitant to go there. But so yeah, I guess it's wherever you want to start the timeline. It's like
where do you start it? What started this?
So there's sort of, I think you even said like in an old live stream, there was like proto ComicsGate or something along those lines, where it was like there was like the blogging area, and then eventually a lot of these alienated customers went from the blogs to YouTube, but then simultaneously there were existing YouTubers that were kind of doing stuff, and they were sort of disenfranchised and disillusioned or whatever. And then this network just started to slowly, there's like a gravitational pull towards it. And we all sort of found each other. And then this network formed. And then at some point in time, there's this sort of like spark where it just like takes off. And so that's where like the Richard C. Meyer comes in, Captain Cummings, Englentine, Captain Frugal, then pros like yourself who had to deal with weirdo blacklists and people trying to elbow you out of the industry. And so all these sort of factors came together, and it's really hard to like point to like where did it all begin or whatever, because so many people were annoyed at what was going on.
When did you start to notice something was wrong? What was the event or the comic or the person, or what happened when you kind of went, wait a second, like this is weird?
So there was I started blogging around 2008, 2009. I don't know the exact date, and that's where I started to get into stuff. But even a little bit before that, on the message boards, that's where they started to get Orwellian with stuff. If you ever disagreed with some of the pros, your comments would just go down the memory hole right away. they would ban you. I was banned multiple times. So just like I'm talking to you right now, that's how I handled myself in the forums. I was gone multiple times on multiple different websites. And then I think what happened was, like with Twitter and some of these social media websites, I noticed that the creators were just getting like weirdly political and super snippy. That's like the best way I could put it, towards the customers. And then there was like the
What year is this? What year is this, do you think?
So there was like the Marvel boards, and there was like One More Day. I've always concentrated on Spider-Man, so there was all sorts of stuff with that. And then I think Richard has covered this before, where it's like, you know, the SJW sort of infestation. Sorry if I got you hit with the algorithm there, but like 2015, 2016, or actually, no, I'm sorry. Actually, the election, I want to say after Barack Obama was elected, there was like some sort of acceleration in some of these ideologues getting more and more partisan over time. So that's another one where it's like it's multifaceted in terms of all the stuff that was going wrong with the industry.
What do you think of women in refrigerators? What do you think? To me, that was the initial thing that I noticed and went, "That's weird." You know, women in refrigerators,
Yeah.
and Gail Simone and that whole campaign to sort of kind of a proto Anita Sarkeesian kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and that's definitely been thrown out there as well. But like, to me, there's almost like a tipping point where it's like maybe you don't notice it at first, or like you said, there's the refrigerator thing, and like you think, okay, maybe this is just a statistical outlier. Maybe this is just like a random thing, this person's, but then slowly...
What was the women in refrigerators thing for people who don't know? What was it for people who don't know?
That was with, that's more like DC. So I've always been a Marvel guy, but that was where she was talking about, that was like Infinite, where the character, where it was like the Flash character or whatever, was like the girlfriend or whatever was put into a refrigerator, or like they found her.
Yeah, it was
her head was in a refrigerator.
Amazingly, it was Ron Mars was the writer that did this, which I think is funny and ironic. But in a scene from like Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern run, early 90s, Kyle comes home and Major Disaster, terrible villain, terrible Green Lantern villain, has murdered Kyle Rayner's girlfriend, chopped her up, and stuffed her body parts into his refrigerator. And there's a big scene drawn by the great Darryl Banks where Kyle opens the refrigerator and his girlfriend has been dismembered and she's in his refrigerator. And it was the entire scene was played for kind of like horror. You know, you're supposed to say, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. This is what comic books actually kind of should be. But what these feminists were pointing out, what they believed, was that girlfriends, you know, females, look at Gwen Stacy, you know, these characters were being used as nothing more than victims to be murdered in order to elevate or motivate the male protagonist.
Right.
And that was the thing. And it was an interesting argument, you know, it was an interesting argument to make. But I think that's the beginning of when people kind of mobilized around a sort of feminist or SJW campaign or cause within comics to actually change the content of the books for the better. I mean, imagine the same kind of campaign running around like the Friday the 13th movies, where it's just like, hey, look, women keep getting killed when they kind of express their sexuality. I mean, that's an ongoing theme. That's a recurring theme throughout these horror movies. And for some reason, you know, that doesn't really necessarily get brought up, but that is what the movie is. That tends to be some kind of subliminal factor within those movies that keeps people coming back. Like, that's a reason women, like, or teenagers having sex, premarital sex in the woods somewhere, is a reason for them to be murdered by a lunatic. So it's interesting. I think if you look too closely at these things, you're going to find all kinds of kind of feminist frequency types of things to complain about. And that was the beginning of it. The success of women in refrigerators, I think, kind of got SJWs moving. Gail got a career from that. I mean, that's the thing. Gail got a career. She got a career in comics because of women in refrigerators and the column that she was writing.
Yeah, and so I guess in many ways I was sort of allowed some time. It actually, I guess, because me being a Marvel guy, it actually in many ways didn't hit me until later on. And so One More Day was like the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Like the deal with the devil and Peter Parker and all that kind of stuff. That's where I was just like, I threw up my hands and I was just like, these people, like they hate the characters, they hate the icons. And so
That's how it felt to you. It felt like hate, that like they hated Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage.
it felt like a very mean-spirited thing to do that was totally unnecessary. Like I've always said that there were ways that they could have essentially, if they didn't like the marriage, they could dissolve it. There's ways to do it in a logical way where I would have been annoyed, but I would have been like, okay, whatever, or whatever. But this doing the devil deal sort of stuff, that was just like, we kind of hate you and we're going to rub it in your face.
Do you think it was anti-Christian? That's why?
I don't know. I heard that Joey Q is kind of going through a divorce or something at the time. I don't know if that's, I don't know. Some of that I don't want to read too much into like the personal lives or whatever, but all I know that it was just a giant slap in the face to the character and his continuity and everything that was established about him. Why would he, his aunt's like 90 something years old. She's going to die and you're going to make a deal with the devil that like dissolves the love of your life. Didn't even make any sense.
Yeah, it was odd. I've been in meetings like that where they realize that the character's aging and they want to save the character and youthen the character somehow. And for some reason, dissolving marriages, dissolving adulthood, taking away any adult choices that they made seems to be the thing that they want to do first. Peter Parker has progressed. He's succeeding now. He's got a beautiful wife. He's doing real well. So we have to strip that all from him so he can become that nerdy teenager again, perpetual adolescence.
Yeah, I remember at the time reading random interviews and they were like, oh, well, it's really tough to write a married character and this and that. And I was like, that's not true. I grew up with Peter and MJ. They were like a newlywed couple. They had a very robust love life. They were happy. They would go out to clubs together. They would go out to dinner. They had fun. They would go dancing. And so nothing about that seemed weird to me. So to all of a sudden say like, no, we can't write a young married couple. Like, I just thought it was really bizarre.
It's an interesting spin on like the Spider-Man, his motivation, because his motivation as a young man was to protect and take care of his Aunt May, who was enfeebled. And by the way, why does an 18-year-old have a 90-year-old aunt? You mean great aunt? Like I think Steve Ditko, when I look at Aunt May, I have to think to myself, Steve Ditko was told, this is an older woman. Like this is not, and Steve Ditko could not define it's a 45-year-old. What does a 45-year-old look like to a 25-year-old artist?
Right.
You know what I mean? Looks like a mummy. So Aunt May is perpetually 90 years old, and Peter Parker always looks like he's 20. There are a few generations that got skipped there. It's a little odd, but the whole thing is, Peter Parker protecting his aunt because she's enfeebled. That gave him something to fight for. And Mary Jane, in the late 80s, early 90s, when you and I were probably reading Spider-Man the most actively, what he was protecting was his beautiful, wonderful wife. That was every reason to go out there, fight, and succeed, because she was a big modeling success, and he was still a struggling photographer. But he had everything that he wanted at home. He had real love at home. So he was worried about and protecting that relationship. Taking that from him was brutal. I agree. I think that was the wrong thing for Marvel to do. And I really think the fans kind of enjoyed the idea of a really healthy, sexy, heterosexual relationship, a marriage, between Peter Parker and Mary Jane.
And that's another one of those instances where if you're a young man, you could kind of vicariously live through your hero. And especially if you were a young, skinny guy like I was, a cross-country runner when I was growing up or whatever, you're like, yeah, maybe one day I'll have my own little like Mary Jane or whatever, and I'll have that love of my life. And then again, just to end it with a deal with the devil, somebody with great power comes great responsibility. To make a deal with the devil, like that's just kind of disgusting to me.
So you complained about this?
Yeah, I used to complain on the Marvel boards. I complained anywhere. And then at some point in time, they basically banned any discussions about One More Day. And so if you were caught talking about it, they would either ban you or they would.
What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with the comic book industry that they're like that? What is that they prohibit some discussion about certain topics? It is really, really weird. I know CBR is the same thing. I peeked in on CBR and they're like, we will have no discussion about ComicsGate here. If you start, we're not going to give them any attention. If you start a discussion about ComicsGate, we will remove that discussion from the boards, and you will be penalized. What on earth is going on in the comic book industry?
Yeah, and I think when they made that rule, that was right when Jawbreakers was coming out, and they were just like, yeah, there will be no discussions about Jawbreakers because we don't support, insert insult, racist, bigot, homophobe, sort of like insult right there.
Why do they do that? What is up with that?
And that's the thing is, the people at the time before it was deleted or locked or whatever, I was looking at some of the posts that made it up beforehand, and it's like they're totally innocuous posts. It's just sharing this and saying like, hey, check this out. This guy's got a book. It looks cool or whatever. No, we can't have that. That's off limits.
Yeah, I really despise that. I find that totalitarian impulse with SJWs. I really find that troubling, and to not discuss these books that we're doing, I think is sinful, especially when the rest of the industry is crumbling all around. You've been a commenter about comics for a long time, and I want to talk to you more about that. But you've actually taken the same leap that your boy Zach has in terms of comics. You've written books before, but right now you've got something called Soulfinder Demons Match here, which you've just recently launched. How long has this been up? Has this been up for like more than a month?
We just extended it for 30 days. So the 30 days just came up over the weekend. I forgot whether it was, I think it was it last night, Sunday? So we're starting into the second month right now. We got just under $23,000, and I forgot what it was. It was like something like 600 and something backers last time I checked. So yeah, we're doing pretty well. That's my book with artist Timothy Lim, colorist Brett R. Smith. We got 2 covers by Dave Dorman and additional art by Matt Weldon. It's basically a major order of exorcists that take on levels of evil that most people can't fathom. But in order to be a part of this order or be recruited, you have to be a combat veteran. So the skill set that's needed to take on this sort of evil, you basically need to see the horrors of war, and you need to come out on the other end with your faith intact.
Wow, Dave Dorman, what a fantastic painter. I remember he did a book called, was it Winter's End or something like that, back in the early 90s, that just blew my mind. And, to find out that his politics and mine kind of align made me happy. I can't help it. I get happy when people kind of vote the same way I do, especially in this industry when that is so rare. Standing up and being brave and just kind of being like, you know what, this is who I am. I'm a Republican, and screw you. If you don't like it, screw you. If you do like it, or you're okay with it and can cope with it, that's great. We can be friends. But if you don't like it, then totally screw you. And I do appreciate that. So I'm glad you got a Dave Dorman cover. I'd love to get a Dave Dorman cover.
Well, it's awesome. Surreal because I grew up in the 90s basically loving his work on the Star Wars stuff, and then suddenly to be having him doing covers for my own Indiegogo book, it was just completely surreal.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is really amazing. So this looks pretty terrific. I put the link in the description, guys. Those of you who haven't backed Soulfinder Demons Match, who are finding out about it now, who are learning about Doug Ernst. We're going to talk about Doug's whole career here within ComicsGate, because it's something that I find interesting. Doug Ernst is, I would say he's enemy numero uno to Dan Slott, which to me is so funny. I don't know, Dan Slott was, all right, look, Dan Slott was one of the more innocuous anti-ComicsGaters or SJWs. I never felt like Dan Slott was necessarily malicious. I just thought he was thin-skinned. But
right.
You would go in your early videos. I turned my camera off, by the way. My nose is all sunburned. I sat out on a raft today and just kind of enjoyed the sun. But you went after Dan Slott and his weirdo work, some of the weirder things he was doing, and the way he was treating people on social media. uh, with a vengeance. Your early videos about Dan Slott were great. So, what was your initial interaction with Dan Slott? What is it that brought Dan Slott to your notice?
So initially, like I said, I had been kicked off basically for the most part the old Marvel boards, and you went into the CBRs and Newsarama, and they didn't really want anything to do with me. My comments were deleted, so I started my own blog, and then that's when I was doing the Spider-Man reviews. And Dan, for whatever reason, well, that gets into the whole creation of ComicsGate as well. Most of these mainstream websites, they're just shills. They would give everything like 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, no matter what it was. So there was not really anybody that was giving a critical eye to some of these stories. Myself and Mike McNulty were kind of like the only two that were really pretty critical.
For 1 second, why do you think these guys shill so hard? What do they get out of it? Because, you know, I did this. I mentioned this morning, I think on this morning's live stream. You know, all of these guys who were giving The Last Jedi 10 stars and you know, never failing to back up and support Lucasfilm, SJW Lucasfilm. All of them posted photographs of themselves on premiere day at Galaxy's Edge with a big basket of free goodies from Lucasfilm.
Yep.
And it's like, you know, that's entirely why these people can't be trusted. You can't trust these people to tell you, the consumer, the truth, because they are mostly concerned, it seems like, about getting their basket of goodies, getting access. That's what we call the access media. And so somebody like you who also works do you tell people where you work?
Yeah, I work for a newspaper in Washington, D.C., the Washington Times.
Okay, so someone like you who works for the Washington Times, you are the media. You know, it's kind of like your job to at least be honest with people, even when it means that you're going to be excluded from things. So you're already used to being excluded from, you know, some of these events because of your honesty. And here you go. You've got all these sites like CBR that are actually banning discussion, IGN banning discussion, giving inflated reviews of terrible comic books just to stay in good with Marvel and DC. And you're sitting there noticing something weird going on with Spider-Man.
Right. And so I think he didn't like the reviews to begin with. Then he found out that I was a classical liberal conservative, and he would randomly tweet about me, but in kind of like vague ways, where he would talk about the crazy conservative blogger. And so he'd always put like the political angle in there.
Singular, like the crazy conservative blogger, just one, you?
Yeah, and then there was like one time where he juxtaposed, like there was a tweet where he said crazy conservative blogger and like the spidery, I don't want to get you hit with the algorithm, but there was like fan fiction that was like Spidey pornographic sort of stuff. Yeah. And he would like link me together with that, and then I would see all the traffic would come to because people are like conservative blogger, Spider-Man, whatever, and then like my traffic would spike. And I would get like 300 or 400 people coming. So he was like drawing people, and then they would read my posts and they would say like, wait, this guy actually, I might not agree with his politics, but he's a pretty rational, pretty logical guy. He's not screaming at people. And then they would stick around, and then it would like build and build. And so he didn't like that I was conservative. He didn't like that I was critical. And then what he really didn't like was that on his Twitter feed, again, these guys, and to his credit, he's calm down these days, but he would go off on weird psycho partisan political rants on the Second Amendment or whatever, and then I would do a blog post on that, and then my buddy Dave Huber would do a blog post, and then there was another guy, Avi Green, he would do blog posts on it. And so
Avi was just like still around. He's a blogger. Avi, oh, that guy does a four color
media monitor.
I've seen that guy. I've read his blog a couple of times. He's pretty good.
And so Dan hated that. He hated him. And so we just kind of became like his public enemy number one, because in many ways we were the only people that were calling him out. And so, of course, he was going to like focus on us. But he never commented. I was like, I'll talk to you anytime, anywhere you want. But then he would find me on like CBR, Newsarama. As soon as I showed up in the chat, he would start saying that I was like a psycho conservative, and then eventually like the moderators would ban me, and so that's kind of where that all spiraled, I guess.
But he found you, like you were just writing blogs about his work, and he must have been like name searching himself, and he found your blogs, and whatever you were writing was really getting under his skin, which I think is pretty funny.
Well, then after I wasn't even on like CBR, there would be random people that would disagree with a storyline, and he would say, "Oh, you're just getting talking points from Douglas Ernst," and then they would be like, "I don't even know who he is. What are you even talking about?" And then they would come to my blog and they'd be like, "Hey, Dan Slott was saying that I'm getting talking points from you," and like I might as well stick around because I kind of like what you're saying or whatever.
Yeah, we agree. So I mean, why not? Why shouldn't I get my talking points from Doug Ernst? So Dan Slott, so you kind of rode that hobby horse because I don't know. I mean, I think Dan reacted to you, and what ended up happening was that Dan was actually shaping his work in some kind of maybe even subconscious, if not passive aggressive way, to get back at you, and you would respond, and then he would respond back and forth. And it became very, very, very funny. I mean, I used to love seeing you talk about Dan Slott. And the thing about it is that while this was going on, I was having kind of a nice conversation with Dan Slott. I spent some time with him in Australia, and I always talk about this. Like, I kind of like Dan Slott. So I got him on my show. I did a nice interview with him and stuff like this. But the great thing about it was, and there's no way this can ever be repeated. I can never go back and do this again because I've completely blown my friendship with Dan Slott. And here's why. I was talking to Dan Slott and friendly with Dan Slott during the Milkshake incident, and I'm glad that I was. I was still like, hey, there can be peace here. We have to be able to get along. I still didn't understand what SJWs were, Doug. I didn't get it. I didn't understand that SJWs were not normal people, and that there's no agreeing with them. There's no convincing them that there should be peace. We should all get along. These people have just a single-minded goal and a determination to destroy people who disagree with them. And there is no, if you try, the funny thing about SJWs, if you try to kind of come to terms with them and try to work it out and find peace, some of them are especially malicious and cruel. And they'll play with you a little bit. That's the ugly thing that you'll see happen. They'll go, well, let's talk about that. Talk about that.
There was actually a period of time where they even denied that they were SJWs. And they were like, you're a conspiracy theorist. You don't even know what you're talking about. And then again, when ComicsGate or whatever people want to call it these days reached a certain point, then they were just like, yeah, okay, yeah, you got us. And then like, but you guys are the evil ones or whatever. And then they just like totally almost did like a 180 and just embraced it. But for a long time, they like in my blogging years, they were just like, you're a conspiracy theorist. You don't know what you're talking about. We're moderates. We're not.
Still do that. Yeah, they're like, no, like you're the lunatic and everyone else hates you. Or this is all. No, the truth is quite the opposite of that. I mean, the SJWs. We still have liberals. I've got, like left wingers on my channel, and they're just like, we just want good comics. They align with ComicsGate because they don't want to be preached at either. Even the stuff that they kind of believe, they don't want to have to pay to hear that nonsense, filtered through some big fat idiot, like Dan Slott in his comics. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to pay for it. It's just not something that they go to comics for. So in any case, during the whole Milkshake incident, I'm talking to Dan Slott. And Dan Slott is like, you have to get away from, I know you're friends with those guys, but they're poisonous, Ethan. They're poisonous. And I'm like, well, like what? It's like, what's going on? Well, they're harassing Heather Antos and they're posting disgusting pornographic pictures of her, and that's the whole thing. Like, that's what this Milkshake thing is about. She went out and she posted a picture of herself and her friends with milkshakes, and they responded by finding some pictures of her that are vulgar, and they're sharing them, and they're sharing pornographic pictures of Heather Antos. I said, you got to be kidding me. Like, who's doing that? Where would they get pictures of Heather Antos like that? And he's just like, well, we've seen them. And I was like, listen, it's not that I want to see pornographic pictures of Heather Antos, but you're going to have to show me, you're going to have to prove to me what you're talking about. And if it's true that there are ComicsGaters out there that are, sharing these pornographic pictures of Heather Antos and, mistreating her and saying disgusting, vile things, then I'll be on your side. I'll say, knock it off, guys.
Right.
I said, you need to show me. And after much arguing back and forth with Dan Slott, he finally said, I'm going to show you, but only if you promise to never show anyone. And I went, well, of course. Like, I'm thinking I'm going to get like boudoir shots of Heather Antos. I'm like, I'm not going to show anybody. Just show me the filth. And Dan Slott ended up sending me over, and it took so long to get this out of him. Somebody took a picture of Heather Antos from her modeling career in which she was dressed for a JCPenney's catalog. She literally had a sweater on and a vest over the sweater and a nice skirt. And it was just like, literally, it looked like a JCPenney's ad. And somebody had cropped in close on her boobs, which were covered completely by a loose sweater, a loose fitting sweater. And they were saying, yeah, look at this, or something like that.
And then you compare that with when Robbie Rodriguez, I believe it was
literally sent me his anus. I mean, you know, it's like the amazing hypocrisy. So I saw this and I said, you know, I got these pictures and I said, yeah. And then like, what else? And he's like, this is enough. Don't you understand? They're looking at her boobs and they're talking about her like this. I'm like, Dan, there better be more than this. And he said, I can't believe you don't understand what I'm talking about, which is what SJWs do. They kind of dramatically sashay out. And I said, I don't see the problem here. Yeah, these guys are saying rude things about Heather Antos' boobs. It's a big deal. It's the internet. And you know, you presented it as something else. And so I kind of left it at that. But then recently there was an article in the Miami Herald in which these same SJWs were going on and on about like the Milkshake incident and how it was the whole truth of it was that people were sharing porno pictures of Heather Antos and mocking her. And I went, you know what? I promised Dan Slott I wasn't going to show this. I'm going to fucking show this now. Excuse my language, Doug. I'm going to do this because this needs to come to a stop. These rumors that become legend that are based entirely on nonsense. There's no evidence to support this. And people's reputations and lives are being destroyed by people like this who are just making stuff up. So I have the proof. I have the receipts. I'm going to show you for history's sake, just for history's sake, exactly what was being passed around and what these SJWs were lying about. And I showed people that conversation I had with Dan Slott. This is it, Miami Herald. This is the porno that was being passed around about Heather Antos. This, and you guys lie. And you're kind of trying to blame diversity in comics and ruin your boy Zach's whole life over these lies. And I've really put this stuff to the test. Ask these people, say, what exactly, where are the receipts? I have receipts for everything. I've been, you know, Doug, I've actually gotten death threats. If people all talk about death threats casually, how many death threats have you received, Doug?
Right. There's only been one that I thought was pretty serious, although there's a couple, we'll say, cyber stalkers that are super creepy as well.
Yeah. Well, I got a bunch of those. I'm sure, like, yeah, I mean, I share those with your boy Zach, but when you get a death threat, it's a substantial thing. When you get a real death threat, when somebody says, I know you're going to be here and I'm going to come there and I'm going to do harm to you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to maim you. I mean, these are the kind of threats that I get. And, you know, I show them. I show people when I get threats like that. People talk about death threats like they're nothing. People are like, I've been getting death threats. I don't believe you. If you actually got a real death threat, you would show it. And you wouldn't be reacting as kind of like your panic is fake. Show me your death threats and let's talk about it. Otherwise, I just don't believe it anymore. I just think it's a talking point. When you do get death threats, it's a substantial thing that happens to you.
Right, and for guys like us that have our real names out there, I mean, there's some people they're totally anonymous on Twitter, and so there's been people in the past that have been like, you know, the way that you're reacting to some of this stuff is a little out of control or whatever. And I'm just like, but literally my name is out there. They know where I live. It's a little different when you're a public figure.
Yeah, it is different for you and me. And, you know, unfortunately, it's different for Richard C. Meyer now, even though he didn't intend it to be. You know, most people it seems like there are a lot of people operating within ComicsGate that are operating under pseudonyms,
right,
anonymously. And these same people oftentimes are threatened with doxing and stuff like that, which is just horrible. But I mean, some of us, I mean, you and me, we actually operate under our real names. And, I'm in the phone book, or at least I was. So it wouldn't be hard to find me. It actually speaking up and telling the truth about what's going on to these people who take comic books so seriously that they would send death threats. They take what they're doing to comic books so seriously that they would send death threats. It kind of forces you and me to take what we're doing equally as seriously in counter to that. Because we are dealing with people who will threaten to maim another human being over their freedom, their right to fill mainstream comic books with their political propaganda.
Well, yeah, these are the same people that are okay throwing milkshakes laced with quick drying cement at guys like us in Portland or whatever. But then Heather Antos just has some people make some salty comments about her drinking a milkshake, and that's considered violence or some sort of hate speech or harassment or whatever. The double standards just are kind of mind-boggling.
So when did you? All right. So the term ComicsGate, when did that pop up in your life? When did you realize ComicsGate was a thing? And then what did you think of it?
I think that there were some really early references to it. Like, I actually think Avi Green may have used it a long time ago, and maybe even Nerd Wonder. I think maybe John Della Rose may have used it, but I don't think it really stuck until I think Richard C. Meyer was basically the ignition. Like, there were all the people that were building what would become ComicsGate. It was just like this gas that was filling the room or whatever, because people were getting, it was a powder keg basically. And then for whatever reason, the stars aligned, or whatever you want to call it, fate, destiny, or who knows, this guy shows up with his cell phone and he's just doing these reviews, and you could see his socks or whatever. And he's like this everyman. And it was before the first adpocalypse as well. So he was doing like 3 or 4 videos a day or whatever the heck it was. His channel explodes. And I think at the time he had like maybe like 20 or 25,000 subscribers. And then once Richard sort of like, he got like, that's where it sort of like stuck and became, and then like the milkshake thing. But I don't know, the critics like to point to the milkshake thing, but I think Richard is this sort of central figure that really helped things take off.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I think, people were talking about ComicsGate, and at the time, I kind of felt, just from from the outside in, not fully committing to, being a part of this, trying to avoid it. I kind of felt like ComicsGate was something that was being pushed by like former Gamergaters.
Right,
I remember seeing like Susan Auger and Heather Antos and these people all sitting around discussing ComicsGate, but also talking about the sad puppies and stuff. And I was like, you guys are Gamergaters that are trying to impose something. You're trying to make something happen here that doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily need to happen if we can just kind of learn to coexist. But no, they were determined. These people were kind of political provocateurs that were determined to make ComicsGate happen. And then once they doxed, and I'm sorry, I think it's doxing. I think they doxed diversity in comics. People say, well, yeah, the info was on the internet. It was findable. Yeah, but it wasn't connected to his channel. He clearly didn't want people to know that diversity in comics was Richard C. Meyer. He didn't want that information out there. They forced that information to be out there and connected it to him. And then what they did every single day was say Richard C. Meyer, not Richard, not Meyer, not Richard Meyer, Richard C. Meyer, over and over and over again on Twitter until everybody understood who this guy was. And I think I thought at the time it was pretty crass. It was pretty cynical. It was pretty evil to do that to him. Just because he was criticizing the comics. And I will also say, for somebody who kind of lived through that, I don't think he was any more provocative. I think he responded to provocation more than he initiated it.
Yeah, then that's where if you go to the Miami Herald hit piece, I think there was maybe there was one in the Daily Beast. I'm not 100% sure on that. There was a couple. There was some major hit pieces or whatever, and they like to point to the dark roast as he made like one kind of joke about Heather that they've latched onto that he's already apologized for. But I've always said, well, you're missing the point where they were trying to link him to white nationalists or whatever the heck, and racists and Nazis. And how many times can somebody call you a racist before you lose your cool and you say something that maybe you regret later? Like, everybody's human. And by that point in time, they had demonized this guy for months.
I don't think there's anything to regret. I'm going to double down on that. Heather Antos is a cum dumpster. You can call her whatever you want to call her, because, Doug, we went through this. We went through all of the evidence of Heather Antos literally scheming with other people who had power within comics to take down his Patreon, to take down his channel, to find where he worked. And they did. They found out that he used to work at PayPal, and then they contacted PayPal and tried to get his job taken from him. Now, these are people who literally worked actively behind the scenes, actively hard work for months in order to make it so that this man could not feed his children. Why? Because he didn't like Marvel Comics. Now, those people are all cum dumpsters, all of them.
I think initially they actually even shared a picture of his daughter that was on Facebook, and then I think they censored it out after the fact, if I remember correctly. But they basically went to his Facebook page, and then he thought some stuff was private that wasn't. But I want to say, like, very early on that they grabbed a picture that included his daughter in that.
They deliberately, I mean, the mistreatment that he endured from these people for simply criticizing Marvel Comics was absolutely insane. And he had every right to say whatever he wanted to about any of them. And I'll go to bat hard for that. I've seen it. I've seen all of the evidence of these people seeking to destroy, not seeking to kind of shut him down, make better arguments, embarrass him on the internet. No, they actually tried to make it so he could not feed his kids. And then they actually found his children on Xbox 360 and started to harass them through that method. They fantasized about killing him. They fantasized about maiming him. Big name professionals in comics schemed to have him humiliated, brought before them at comic conventions. They made his life a living hell. And in response, he said they're cum dumpsters. That's a phrase that I don't even like. I find that to be kind of, Zach's sort of, Hustler magazine from the 1970s lexicon. But whatever he wants to call them, I'm going to say, yeah, you have every right to call those people that, because they tried to destroy you for making fun of Squirrel Girl. Fuck these people. There's absolutely no reason to apologize. The fact that he did apologize makes me angry. That he felt that he needed to apologize to these people makes me angry. He can say whatever he wants about any of them. And I think he should.
And what they don't seem to ever get is they created him. If they would have just sort of like ignored him, I shouldn't say, he would have always kept growing, and he obviously was, but they sort of like injected it with steroids by getting so obsessed over him that it just, again, they're always adding fuel to the fire. And then they're like wondering, it's like, all you had to do, he's said this before, all you have to do is be professional and stop shoehorning politics into the stories, and you could end my YouTube career overnight. But when they kept attacking him, it's like, you're just giving him more material to work with. And that just made him more popular.
Yeah, it made him into a legendary figure. And the irony of this all is that these people talk about how, you're on the wrong side of history, all this nonsense that they say. They are history. These people are history. What they've done to comics is make comics a thing of the past. And if anyone were to ever make an honest documentary about the end of the comic book industry and who was important, who actually tried to make a difference, who the problems were, and who the people seeking an equitable solution would be, your boy Zach would be the star of that film. He is literally, and like I told DC Comics just before I left, they actually said to me, you feel okay like associating with with Richard C. Meyer? I mean, he's very controversial. I said, guys, he is the most important voice in comics right now. Whether you want to acknowledge that now, and be ahead of the curve, or whether you realize it 20 years from now, that's up to you. I'm here to tell you, he's the only one talking accurately, assessing well, you are too, Doug, but I mean, you don't get brought up with the same kind of, anger that this man does. He's the only one who's speaking truth about what's gone wrong. What's gone wrong in comics. And
the thing is, instead of asking, even if we'll just say, let's pretend for the sake of argument that they're right on many issues about him. I don't believe that, but for the sake of argument, instead of asking why this guy resonated with people so much that he was able to, grow his YouTube channel to over 100,000 subscribers. I think God King, the last time I checked, it was basically $100,000. Jawbreakers, Lost Souls, whatever, that was like 450,000. Even you, for instance, you in a short amount of time started your YouTube channel. Now you have something like 130,000 subscribers. Cyberfrog Blood Honey, when all is said and done, I know you're close to like $1 million on this book. Instead of saying, what is it about these guys that we could learn from and duplicate it to save the comic book industry, they don't even care about that. They just care about destroying critics. And it's like, you're looking at it completely wrong. Even if you hate these guys, you could learn a lot from them, but they don't want to admit that they could learn from you.
No, they're supremely arrogant. I don't know what psychologically is wrong with these people, but for the most part, they were nerds and wallflowers in high school. So much of this is just high school issues. People don't really progress too much beyond high school. For the most part, these nerds, you give them power and they misuse it. You give these people a sense of self-importance, and they immediately use it to dominate and control other people and demean other people. SJWs are made of this material. They're made of this cloth. They were beaten up. They were abused. They were neglected in high school. And they've grown up now. And, with a full intention of self-righteousness that, they are going to get revenge. They are going to get revenge on society. They're going to do it however they need to do it. And by the way, it's a shocking thing for them. Once they've been given power, once Dan Slott has been given control of Spider-Man, for a blogger, from the Washington Times or Examiner?
Washington Times, yeah.
Washington Times. To write articles that actually put him in his place and criticize his work in a real way, somebody who isn't a shill. It's infuriating. It's infuriating. It's humiliating. It feels like high school all over again. And they can't cope with it. Like they could not cope with Alpha Chad, your boy Zach. Here's a soldier. Here's somebody who's actually done something. He's seen the world. Clearly, he's put his life on the line. He obviously loves comics, and everything that he's saying actually does impact, resonate. It attracts people. People get it. They can relate to him. They understand. They felt like something has been wrong with comics for the past 7 years, but they couldn't articulate it. And here's a guy who kind of puts a comic book in his lap, and he just kind of says, "Hey, everyone, it's your boy Zach." And it just goes into a fantastic diatribe that pulls apart these comics and makes them make sense. He pulls out and identifies tropes that we've seen, that we've experienced, that have always rubbed us the wrong way, and he was able to put it to words and make us understand exactly what these people were doing, who they were, how psychologically batshit that they are, and what their intentions might be. I mean, we can only really speculate. But this guy actually turned the comic book industry upside down from the driver's seat of his, what was he driving, a Kia, a Hyundai?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
This is important to me, and it actually kind of informed me because I was watching his videos. I knew not Zach. He was Richard C. Meyer. He was on my Facebook page. I knew him from Facebook, and he was always on there. He was dogged in his fights. People either liked him or hated him because he would get into discussions about politics and he would never let it go. He would never let it go. I remember when I got in big trouble. I was stalked by SJWs right after the election, and I was being kind of chased around by these guys. And finally, I just said, "You know what? Kill yourself." kill yourself, loser, to one of them. And that was like screen capped. And it was, you know, oh my God, Ethan is telling this man who's actually suicidal that he needs to kill himself. Kill yourself's internet lexicon. It means go jump off a bridge.
And that's where that double standard comes in again. Whereas if you guys like us, if we ever make one mistake, rhetorical mistake or misstep or whatever, we lose our temper one time, you will be defined for the rest of your life by that one time. And that's what they will try to do to you. But again, when they are literally pulling down their pants, doubling over and taking pictures of it and then sending it out onto the internet, then it's like, oh, that never happened.
We sweep that under the rug. Well,
yeah,
your boy Zach went in. There was a discussion by pros on Facebook about me telling people to kill themselves. And your boy Zach went in there and he just went, all of you, kill yourselves. How can you say that? Well, you're not dead yet. Kill yourself. How come you're not dead? I told you to kill yourself. You know, like just and just went after all of them. Like, this is ridiculous. Like the idea that, you know, what Ethan says, you know, makes a difference, you know, will cause somebody to do self-harm is ridiculous. I'm telling you all to kill yourselves and you're not doing it. And he went on all day long with this. And I just watched him like a dog with a bone. And this was before he was was it before he was Diversity in Comics? Yeah, I think it was right when he was about to start his YouTube channel. And so I knew him from that. Captain Cummings keyed me in and said, hey man, your friend started a YouTube channel. Now, did you know Zach before YouTube?
Not before YouTube, no. I met him shortly after I started YouTube because he basically, it was like Captain Cummings and myself and Richard or Zach, or we all sort of like met simultaneously shortly after coming to YouTube. And then there was like we had like basically like a little DM group with Englantine and I Love Comics for a number of like months or whatever. But that was like the really, really early days when Richard first set up his YouTube channel.
Yeah, I started watching his videos and they had an impact on me, and I realized a bunch of stuff about myself and the way I was treating my fans, and I realized a lot of things about the comic book industry that I was enmeshed in, you know. And then I discovered you. I think Cummings recommended you to me. You know, loved your stuff, absolutely loved your stuff. I thought it was great. You know, you have a very scholarly way. You know, I think whereas Zach is a little bit more colorful and sort of Zach draws from personal experience. I think you draw more from the movies. You make references all the time. I mean, look, we'll go to your page and just look at your videos right now. This is Doug Ernst and his take on comics. You use. Well, you're kind of a boomer like me. What is this? What are you doing? Journey separate ways. I watched this video yesterday, and you're sitting there singing, you know, in the opening.
Yeah, I was hoping some people would do a little double take and then be like, "Did Doug just insert himself into a Journey video from the 1980s?"
Yes, it was great. You lip synced along with the band, so it was cool. But you know, this is the way you kind of you talk. Like you think in terms of. You know, Marvel's Vader-esque deals revealed by ex-Iceman writer, you know, Cena Gray. That's an interesting way to look at that. You know, people understand, you know, this deal's getting worse and worse all the time. And in a way that's almost sympathetic towards Cena Grace. Is that how you feel?
Well, it talks about how he kind of knew what he knows the deal in many ways, but he also, in many ways, Marvel is like Vader in that it could change the deal at any point in time and throw him under the bus, and they will throw you under the bus. So it's one of these situations where he needs to take responsibility for his own actions, and he needs to know that, like, yeah, you're an SJW. It's like the old Eurythmics song or whatever. Some of them want to use you, some of them want to be used by you, and so that was sort of the track that I was taking with that particular video. A little of both, I guess. But this sort of stuff, I mean, that goes back to my blogging days. And years ago, I used to work for the Heritage Foundation, and there was a lot of social conservatives that didn't want anything to do with the music industry. They didn't want anything to do with Hollywood, while simultaneously complaining that the culture was getting away from them. And so I wanted to be show that there are conservatives and right-leaning individuals out there that actually can speak the language of popular culture in a way that exposes exactly what's going on with these particular SJWs and what they're doing. So that's why I usually tend to rely on the pop culture references and the movies and stuff, things along those lines.
What? So, you know, Bleeding Cool is like Francis and Pee-wee's Big Adventure, for example. What? So you're looking at the news, you're looking at an event, and it draws you back to a movie. Here you have like Captain Marvel fiasco highlights Rocky versus Drago. More than anything, you're pulling references from the 1980s. It seems like here's the A-Team here,
Right.
and using them to sort of illustrate how you feel about about what's going on. By the way, how is Bleeding Cool like Francis and Pee-wee's Big Adventure, or do we need to watch the video?
So, well, they could definitely watch the video, but also it's one of those things where ComicsGate and actually the Indiegogo, the independent comics movement, the success of guys like yourself and Richard and everybody that's Clint from who's doing Downcast and all these people, that's like the shiny bicycle that they want. And they hate that we have the shiny new bicycle. We were the ones that were the forward-thinking people that were like, this is where the industry is going, partly because they're killing it. And they are obsessed with getting that bicycle. And they're like, we will destroy you unless you give us this bicycle.
And the bicycle itself is made up of disparate parts that don't look like they belong together. And it's
right.
It can be silly. You know, I think that's a pretty good metaphor for ComicsGate as well. A lot of us are kind of silly. By the way, I want to tell everybody in the chat, I don't know if you've subscribed yet to Doug ERNST's channel, but you should if you haven't. His videos are on point. They're a little bit more scholarly. The meat of your videos are scholarly, but you surround them with a good sense of humor about yourself. I think your wife gets involved a few times.
Right.
Which is fun. Whenever Andrea, my wife, gets involved, people really appreciate it, but she's super shy. I'm like, just say hi to people. And she's like, hi. It's like, no, come on camera. You're beautiful. No, I don't want to.
Yeah, people have said that if my wife were on a regular, or if she started her own channel, she would have more subscribers in a month than I have had in like 2.5 years or whatever it's been. And I definitely agree with that.
If you guys haven't subscribed, we should do a sub drive and see if we can get you to 13. So far you've got 16 more subscribers. Doug's it like, oh my gosh, what if we did that? What if we went to Social Blade? Why don't we do that?
Yeah,
right, we're gonna do a subscriber drive for Doug ERNST, and let's see if we can get him up there.
If they think it looks like it's up their alley, these days YouTube is they're doing some shady stuff with my channel. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, they're doing it to me too, Doug. Don't you worry. When you're like, hey, I don't want to get your algorithm. I don't even care anymore. I just don't care. Like these people. Let's see it go up here. There you are, 12,014. Boom! Look at this. Sub drive to Doug ERNST. Let's get him to 12,500. If you haven't subscribed to Doug ERNST yet, could you guys put the link in the chat and let's get Doug up? I like this stuff. Boom! Here you go. 470.
It's one of those things where you were talking about Richard and his appeal. The thing that I like about ComicsGate or Team Comics, whatever people are calling it these days, is there's different people that are attacking this same problem from multiple different angles. So someone like Richard, he'll put on the brass knuckles, and he'll go after these people and give them a taste of their own medicine. Like you said, I usually try and bring in a little bit more of, I guess, yeah, I would agree, the scholarly sort of element to it, but also mixing in the popular culture.
You're really funny. You have a laugh. Wow, you're at 12,514 now. 100 subs pretty quick. You're really funny. I have a good time watching your videos, and they almost always interest me. Zach's like, you don't watch all my videos. I watch like half of Zach's videos. Sometimes I don't want to hear him review things positively. This is boring. I love when he tees off on something terrible. But most of your topics are interesting because they're broad. It's like they cover some event that's happening in the comic book industry, and you compare it to something else and kind of bring insight to it. I really do enjoy your channel. I think you're invaluable, just an invaluable voice to the movement, which is important to me, Doug.
And sometimes there are people that they either want me to get involved in sort of stuff or whatever. And I've said before that I think of this movement as like kind of a human body. And so I'll leave it up to people to decide what I am or what you are or Richard, and some of them might be funny, but it's like somebody is the heart of ComicsGate, somebody's the liver, somebody's the kidney, somebody's the brain, somebody's the eyes, whatever. And so if you don't like what somebody is doing, it's like, okay, what you have to think of what role that person is playing within this movement. Some people are attack dogs or whatever, and there is a time and a place for people to be an attack dog. To say that we should never have attack dogs and they should just be totally banished from the movement, to me, is kind of short-sighted thinking. And it's like, well, if you don't like attack dogs, then don't pay attention to the attack dog. Or if you think that Ethan Van Sciver is the kidneys of ComicsGate or whatever, or the liver, or I don't know, or the heart or whatever, and you're annoyed with you, well, you could pay attention to the eyes of ComicsGate or the white blood cells of. Everybody has a different role to play within the movement.
Yeah, I'm coming to terms with that. It's a difficult thing because I think people think ComicsGate is all contained on like one YouTube channel, and it's like that's just not what ComicsGate is. ComicsGate to me is just this same kind of thing where you are noticing what we're talking about. You're seeing the damage that's being done to comics because of social justice warriors. And if you're seeing the damage that's being done to comics by social justice warriors and you want to do something about it and you want to talk about it and you care about comics and you want comics to thrive in some way. And by the way, I don't think it's going to thrive the same way. Things are going to change. Things are going to have to change. We're not going to be doing the direct market in 10 years. I just don't think it's going to be around. I don't think there are going to be enough stores to maintain the direct market. And we're going to have to find a new way to do things. But if you care, if it's important to you, you have a lot of different voices within ComicsGate, in the critic community, especially, addressing the same problem but differently. And you should just kind of proudly fly the ComicsGate hashtag because this movement has strength because of numbers. The comic book industry can change. We can do something here. We can change the comic book industry, or at least build a new one. If we all work together. If we're all working separately, we're all fighting, we all don't like each other because of this and that, I think we're dead in the water.
Right.
I think we're too busy. We don't have people grabbing oars and rowing, as John Malin said.
And the cool thing about that's going back to if our critics actually looked at things in a way where they thought they could actually learn from us, they would look at a Yellow Flash, they would look at a Tug, they would look at a Just Some Guy, they would look at you and see how much in such a short amount of time. Doesn't like Yellow Flash have something like 70,000 subscribers now?
Yeah.
All of these guys that a couple years ago, they were just starting out. They had like 100 subs, 200 subs or whatever. And now because every day they're on the grind, they're covering different issues. To me, it's so mind-boggling that the industry doesn't say like, hey, let's duplicate what these guys are doing or find a way to create some semblance of success using their model.
Yeah. I would be, Doug, I think it's inevitable that they're going to have to. I'm hearing from people, I'm hearing from professionals now who are coming to terms with the fact that, look, page rates are shrinking, they're in decline. Royalties, I just got, a royalty statement from DC Comics, for stuff that's fairly new. And it's just like, yeah, like, it's just not, look, things are in decline. Things are just kind of in decline all around. And sales are down. You could just see it on Comic-Con that sales are just down. So, inevitably, as DC shrinks its line by 24%, people kind of fall out of the boat and into the water. Or, the Titanic is sinking and people are now in the icy cold water. Before that happens to you, maybe think about what we're saying. Maybe think about the things that we're saying, the things that voices in this movement are offering you, and consider, what your options are and what choices you have at this point. Because you could actually make things better for yourself by just saying, I'm going to kind of abandon the industry as it is now. I'm going to abandon this idea that everything should be about whisper networks, everything should be about SJW politics, and I'm going to go forward and create my own comic book, crowdfund it, address my audience with respect and with deference. and I'm going to sell my comics. And you can believe whatever you want to believe, but put your customers ahead of your own selfish, needs and views, and you're going to find success. I think if you do that, you're going to find success no matter who you are. We just had another, huge campaign, with Doug TenNaples, Earthworm Jim. That's $1 million campaign.
Right.
That campaign's going to be the first one to hit 7 figures, and that's absolutely extraordinary. Make a plan for yourself. Interact with your customers. Doug never did. I'd never even heard Doug TenNaples speak before he came on my show, and now everyone knows Doug personally. You may like him, you may not like him, but everyone knows him. He's sort of become like an uncle, to ComicsGate. So all of this stuff just kind of, I think, leads to success. And when you see people doing this, when you see people adopting these methods for getting your comic books out there, all of them succeed. Especially the pros who have had a long time in this industry, who've already established, who've learned how to draw and write. They're going to succeed gloriously. So I'm happy about that. And at the moment, we've got another thing. We've got Jawbreakers God King. This is your boy Zach. I don't know if you guys in the chat, we've got 1,500 and some people watching right now. Wow, he's at $95,127. If you have not backed Jawbreakers God King, the link is in the description. This is a chance to say thanks to your boy Zach. Obviously, it's a chance to get a great comic. It's a chance to double down on everything Zach said over the past year and a half. Double down on it. There's some things that SJWs do that occasionally we need to duplicate, and one of those things is to double down. What we're saying is true. We're not lying like they are. They lie and double down on lies. We tell the truth and double down on that. And that's what we need to do. So if you haven't backed Jawbreakers God King, do that. The link is in the description. Back Soulfinder Demons match by the incredible Doug ERNST. Doug, I want you to succeed, my friend. I really do. I wish all the best for you. I want you to actually I want you to succeed in this business. I want you to succeed in your comics. And I'm going to do everything I can to see that happens.
Yo, like I said before, I'm super grateful that you had me on. And the grassroots support for the Soulfinder campaign in general has just been amazing, whether it's you, whether it's Richard or Doug TenNaples or just some guy, Yellow Flash, Tug, Clint from Downcast. All these people across the board have been super. Professor Geek was another one. Nerdrotic. There's just been so much support. Drawing Aces, they were the first people to actually have me on. So I can't thank enough all the people that have sort of supported this book from the get-go. And like I said, thank you for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm really glad you could come on. And do you mind if you want to read some super chats? And let's see what people are saying.
Yeah, stick around as long as you want.
Okay, cool. Most of them are going to be people calling me fat, but that's par for the course. If anyone has questions for Doug, I'm going to read these super chats, and then you can send them along, or if you want to send them as a super chat, that would be nice too. Hold on a second. Everything is complain about this every day, but it's always difficult to find the super chats. Stream now, events. Yeah, I just basic YouTube. And yes, we were demonetized. I just saw we're demonetized. Of course we are. We're always demonetized. That means we're doing it right. We're doing it right. Matt Horkins, a new member. So is C. Kalinowski. Doug, I mentioned it at the beginning, but just to mention it again, my channel has opened up for memberships. YouTube has offered this kind of built-in Patreon. Which if other YouTubers are aware of this, you should be trying to do it too. Because screw Patreon for what they did to Sargon, ridiculous. So you can join the channel. You can pledge, I think, $4.99 a month to get your name emboldened in green and get a little soy boy avatar next to your name. Which will change. I think every month there'll be a new one. As long as you stay subscribed, you're going to get a new avatar every month. And also you're going to have access to 20-something, channel-specific emojis that, the memes of the channel, like Hey Mike, Mike, with a rocket ship shape behind it. I know some people say it looks phallic, but that's not what I intended, I'm sure. And also I'm going to be doing specific live streams just for members. You guys will get an invite and you can tell me whatever you want. You can call me fat and there'll be fewer people in the chat. So, welcome. And thanks for everybody who joined. Unhinged Crank says, yes, Doug Ernst. People are excited to see you here. Johnson says, thanks for your Riz Ahmed video. People have to get wise to the get dumb people angry tactic before it's Mao's cultural revolution all over again. Yeah, Doug, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you follow the Star Wars news too much.
A little bit here and there, and I see your videos sometimes.
Yeah, this guy Riz Ahmed, who played Bodhi Rook in Rogue One, he was supposed to come to Star Wars Celebration. And he, he's Muslim. So he's like, I couldn't make it because I was held up at the airport. I was for being Muslim. They wouldn't let me get on the plane. This is bullshit. There's no proof for this. And everybody's reacting like, oh my God, in 2019, I travel. I used to travel a lot, not so much anymore. TSA pulled me out of the line all the time. It was me being pulled out of the line. It's old ladies being pulled out of the line. These people do not mistreat Muslims. It's an outrage. Homeland Security abusing Muslims. Muslim movie stars, no less.
It's interesting that it's an activist. It's sort of like the MAGA country attack in Chicago with the Empire guy or whatever. It's like these activists are always the ones that apparently are targeted and singled out by people. It's an interesting coincidence.
Yeah, I said that at the beginning of this the video I made about this. I said, isn't it weird that like the victims of hate crimes all turn out to be SJWs? That's odd how that happens. Swinging Cod is a new member. Thank you. Swinging Cod also says, I first noticed it in the Brubaker Epting Bucky Cap book where they connected the Tea Party with the Red Skulls and the Nazis around 2011. Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah, my buddy Dave Huber, I think he did a piece for Newsbusters on that.
I mean, this is the outrage of Marvel Comics right now. The outrage of Marvel Comics is taking perfectly sensible Republican talking points, political talking points, and putting them in the mouth of the Red Skull. Nobody wants to pay for that. Nobody wants to have to pay to be insulted like that by these people. And then you actually see these people, you interact with them. These people are one step away from being homeless. And they're going to lecture you about your politics, and they're going to call you the Red Skull.
Right. It's one of these things like Nick Spencer was the guy who said it was a myth that you could be a good Republican and that Republicans are evil. And he's never backtracked on that at all. So it's like these guys can say that you are literally evil, but if you kind of clap back on them like Richard has done, then all of a sudden you're like the worst human being in the world, and the Miami Herald needs to do hit pieces on you.
Yeah. I like the Spike Man. Wow, thanks for $20. Well, this is a controversial comment. I don't want to read this. He says, if you aren't with us, you want to, and then he uses a lot of phrases here that Nazis did to the Jews. He says, the far left is the gift that keeps on giving. Petty character design doesn't equal sexualization. Yeah, please don't send me super chats like that. I want to read these super chats, but I don't want to get the channel in trouble. Unhinged Crank says, they missed the point of the slasher films. Horror and boobies brought in the money. Teens and boys love the boobies and gore. Low budget movies 101. Geek Truth 64 says, I guess dealing with the devil is cheaper than a lawyer. The message of Marvel. What a brand new day. Isn't that weird? They couldn't just get them divorced, have a fight.
Yeah, there was completely logical reasons why she could have said, like, you know what, I can't take it anymore. The stress is too much, or whatever the heck. And then she could have come back a couple years later. She grew as a person or whatever. She has to have him. But no, they had to do the devil deal.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been nice. Like, can you imagine that kind of discussion where Mary Jane says, I just can't take the stress anymore, being married to you. Something could have happened that, I mean, it would have been a good story. It would have been a normal story that people could understand, where it's like your work is so stressful or so dangerous,
right?
That I can't take it anymore. Policemen could relate to that. People who are enlisted could have related to that story. No, instead, something insulting and stupid and fanciful and weird.
Right, and that's something where, like you mentioned, a lot of the writers were making weird comments about Mary Jane being home, worrying about Peter, and how it was so insulting. And I was like, no, you're being insulting to the wives or even the husbands of law enforcement officers around the world, or soldiers, or sailors, or airmen who need to, like, there's always a spouse, if you have a dangerous job, that's going to be worried when you're out on the job. And to say that that's somehow belittling to the spouse is bizarre.
Yeah, it's ugly. It's just an ugly story from some people I don't think who are thinking clearly. Old Wave says 1 more day is when I stopped reading comics. The exact reason you guys are saying. That's good. Spirits Car is a new member. Thanks for joining. Mr. CPU says, love your writing, Doug. Not enough clickbait, though. Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Doug's titles can be a little bit kind of esoteric.
I was just going to... Richard's talked to me about that before, and he was like, dude, you're doing weird stuff with silver spoons. You can't do that. Just say Mark Waid is blah, 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 or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, I know I'm being esoteric. I know it's a silver spoons reference and whatever. And it's like, there's that balance between wanting to reach as many people as possible, but also sort of staying true to your vision. And so that's a tough balance to strike.
No, be yourself. People just have to find you. They have to be led to you. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, right now the YouTube game is. I think when I started, more people were helping each other, but now it's more sort of everybody's out for themselves, and people kind of realize they figured out that, look, you can clickbait and grow your channel. It used to be like, put me on as a guest and my channel will grow. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that anymore. I think more people need to actually recommend other good YouTubers. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm fully recommending Doug ERNST to you guys. And your channel has blown up, 12,585 subscribers now. So and it's still moving.
The pressure's on. I got to deliver the goods now. So
yeah, let people know, guys, when especially, it doesn't have to just be Doug, but any YouTuber that you really enjoy. I mean, put the word out on Twitter, on Facebook, and introduce other people to that YouTuber and help them grow their audience naturally. Rodrigo Beltran, thanks for $1. CMYK Comics says, LOL at how they erased Spidey's marriage so, quote, kids can relate to him again, unquote. And then in the first year, he fights a freak who got powers from shooting bad meth. What the fuck? I didn't know about that. I guess I just don't read Spider-Man enough. John Chidester, thanks for $10, says, EVS, I have to get this off my chest. How come I am soy when I am part of the first group to ever become members? Maybe the people who waited to join, but I didn't wait. Okay, got it off my chest. Oh, no. Well, everyone is soy initially. I just needed to have a first avatar. I just needed to have a first thing, and I just figured soy would be. What is soy going to be the last thing? Are you going to achieve soy after being a member of the channel for a year? If you don't like the soy boy thing, I can change it. That's not a problem at all. I can make you guys Cecil right out of the gate. In fact, let's do that right now. Let's do that, Doug. Let's make everybody, instead of people being soy boys, all new subscribers are going to become Cecil. How do you feel? Does that make sense?
There you go. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to. It's your channel, so I'm cool with whatever you want to do on your channel.
I appreciate it. Okay, so we're gonna find out how people feel if they get to be Cecil for subscribing to the channel. And everyone loves Cecil. Everyone loves Cecil. Let's see. Go to new memberships. But I'm telling you, everything's a problem on YouTube. It really is. And they don't do anything about it. All right, edit. Let's get rid of this. Let's edit the badge. Let's replace the image. And let's put Cecil there. And, again, this is because you guys demanded it. You guys said, we don't want to be soy boys. We want to be Cecil. Now, some people are saying, no. Sorry. Some people said, yes, you're going to be Cecil for a little while. All right. So that should happen now. Did it happen?
Yeah, it looks like it's showing up.
Okay. There are people like, no, we don't want to be Cecil. Cecil is worse than soy, says Sergeant Bats. Sergeant Bats doesn't like me, but he likes you. And that's why he's here. I think that's a fine thing. Let me see here. All right. Professor Geek says, enjoying the stream, gentlemen. Great topics. Yeah, I could talk. Honestly, I don't, I would like to talk Doug's ear off about ComicsGate. I care about it. Other people, I don't know if people care about ComicsGate as much as I do. I talk to my wife about it all day long, but I mean, you were there from the beginning. I would really like to go through everything that ever happened to you, especially with Dan Slott.
Yeah, well, that's the health of the movement keeps bringing in new people, and so I think sometimes it's important to kind of like revisit the history to sort of know, okay, this is where we've been, and once you know your history, it could help you kind of moving into the future.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, they're freaking out about the Cecil badge. They're going, awful. No, not Cecil. One dude demanded it. No. All right, I'll put the soy boy back. Doug, is this customer service or what?
There you go. That's why you have 130,000 subscribers.
Watch this. I'm going to replace it. I'll put the soy boy back, and then everybody will complain about that. Let me see here. Yeah, there it is. Okay. All right, so now it's going to be soy boy again. Save and publish. And let's see if you guys are happy now. This is illustrative of trying to please everyone, Oh no, people are unsubscribing left and right. Let me see. All right, so it should start coming up. Your Cecil should be replaced with soy boy again, and we'll see how you guys dig that. Anthony Scott says, don't forget Melissa Morgue. Melissa Morgue was pretty fascinating. When I think about how weird ComicsGate actually got in 2017, or was it 2018?
Losing track of time. Yeah, I think it was early 2018.
Yeah, that was weird.
Weird. As ComicsGate continued to grow, there were people that wanted to derail it in all sorts of strange and bizarre ways.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Melissa Morgue was a strange character. Think about Renfamous. Think about who Renfamous is to ComicsGate. Well, Melissa Morgue was an early version of Renfamous, who ran a channel called Feminist something or other. I want to say Feminist Frequency, but obviously that wasn't it. Feminist Fangirl or something like that. And was profoundly anti-ComicsGate, but used to come into the streams and would kind of pick fights with people and then sort of cry. I used to get messages from her, in quotes, crying about how she was being mistreated, in my streams by people. And I'd say, I know she's a leftist, but, be nice. I was fully aware that Melissa Morgue was some kind of weird op. We call them gay ops. Gay ops are, it's people making schemes and plans on the internet to kind of disrupt. I don't know. It's dumb, and that's what this was. This was an attempt to trap people, create something that would maybe become a hit piece. Well, over time, Melissa Morgue got weirder and weirder, and finally, she would create fake identities, like second, third, and fourth accounts that would bolster what she was saying.
Right.
Finally, when things were not going that well, a new account showed up of a man who was saying, I'm a big fan of your boy Zach, and I went and murdered Melissa Morgue, and here's a picture of what I did, and this is because of you guys. And it was a dead body. It was a woman with her throat slit, some kind of like police crime scene photograph, And that was it for me. I was out at that point, and I kind of Melissa Morgue. We were kind of going back and forth in DMs, and I said, "This was too much. This is too much." And then somebody contacted me. A woman contacted me and said, "Mr. Van Sciver, I am Melissa Morgue's wife. Melissa Morgue is actually named, Martin." And gave me his full name, gave me all of his details, gave me photographs of him with her, and just said he is tearing our family apart with this obsession with ComicsGate. He's down in the basement all day long planning gay ops to destroy you guys. Initially, I thought it was funny and fun. I thought it was just trolling and we were having a good time. But now he's obsessed, and he comes like he's moody around the house. He feels like he's not beating you guys the way he wants to, and it's got to stop. I really feel like this is going to lead to jail time eventually. And he's like, please help my family. And so, I was like, oh my goodness. So I kind of just said, hey, Martin, the game is up. The game's up. Your wife's contacting me now. Now, eventually, we found out the whole thing. I mean, this person was actually hiring a female voice actress to do his feminist fangirl videos and pretend to be Melissa Morgue. And this whole thing, this guy was so obsessed with us that he went through this incredible charade and was tearing his family apart to maintain this illusion and just destroy ComicsGate. So, I mean, every single day we hear weirdos saying ComicsGate's dead. This is it. This is it for ComicsGate. It's over. The movement can't survive this. We have survived weirder and worse, and we've just gotten bigger and stronger. I mean, so,
It almost seems like it's Andy Kaufman-esque or something like that, but it's like, no, this is real. These people are really that unhinged. And this is what ComicsGate has actually grown through, like you said, all of this weirdness into putting out books that literally are $1 million books.
Yes. I mean, it's fantastic. I wish somebody would actually write a novel about what, Andrea is always telling me, you need to keep a journal so you can write a book about this, because it is too weird. Your experience is too weird, and people would be fascinated to read about it. And I always think about it and think it's not really.
I think it would actually be a great documentary if somebody did ComicsGate, the documentary. You could probably do one on not like something like King of Kong, but like with ComicsGate or something along those lines.
Yes.
And I think it would be like, there's so many cool personalities. You might even be able to get some of the industry pros that hate ComicsGate to go on camera or something. I think it would be an awesome film.
I would really like it. I would like to make it. It would make the whole industry look like a clown show. Normal people would just be like, what is going on with comic books? I mean, even when that weirdo who likes tentacle porn, Kurt, what's his name?
He's going to come after you now.
Yeah, we already talked. Whatever that guy's name is. He when he actually got involved and he saw some of the stuff that was being said about diversity in comics, he's like, when did comic books become evil political? Like, what is the mental illness that's going on here? I can't believe some of the stuff that I've seen. And what's going wrong with the comic book industry? And as weird as Kurt is, and he is weird, that was a fairly healthy and sane point of view, an outsider's point of view, which was kind of surprising from what came later. Like I'm like, Kurt, you're just as bad as these people. But it was a pretty rational point of view, an outsider's view of the comic book industry and how crazy it's become. And it's only because nobody cares about comic books in the real world that this stuff is allowed to proliferate. Otherwise, this would be on the news, the insanity. Those of you who want to know, look up Melissa Morgue on YouTube, Melissa Morgue. You'll find videos that I made, probably find some videos that Zach made. It's an interesting part of ComicsGate history, and that history belongs to you. If you fly the hashtag, you should know about this stuff. Taco Twister's a new member. Yellow Flash 2 is here. He says, Doug was the first guy to shout me out. Great guy. So Yellow Flash is a fan. Raging Goblin says, out in the middle of nowhere, I wear my Fandom Menace t-shirt and get all these Fight Club-esque nods. We are everywhere. Hell yeah, of course we are. Dennis Shikon Art says, yo, EVS, thanks for having Doug ERNST on. He's one of the good guys. Also, check out Relic on Indiegogo. Yeah, I want to stress that. I like Doug ERNST. I've always liked Doug ERNST. And when we've had problems in the past, Doug, what happens? It's like,
yeah, the weird thing is like people like come up with conspiracy theories, and it doesn't matter how many times that you say something nice about me. It doesn't matter how many times I do a video defending you, or we could even be on a stream like this right now, and like they will not believe it. It doesn't, like, they just still think like, no, you must hate his guts or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I literally would not be here right now. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre, but I've always felt like we're allowed to disagree with one another, and as long as you're able to, like, man to man speak with the other person and say like, hey, I disagree with you, but this is why XYZ, like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, when we were fighting last year, I think you and I came to some weird stuff happened, by the way. So for those who don't know, there was an issue last year. I think some people were upset that I was defining what ComicsGate meant and who was ComicsGate and who wasn't. And I did that quite inadvertently. I did it quite casually, where I said, well, books that have politics in them aren't ComicsGate. Well, there were some people who considered themselves ComicsGaters who were producing books that had political satire in them that didn't take too kindly to my comments, and they wanted to confront me about them. And my comments to me were just casual. I mean, I just kind of said them like, yeah, of course. But it hurt some people, and their Indiegogo campaigns, they felt, because, they wanted to be associated with ComicsGate. So that got ironed out with most people. I think it didn't get ironed out with Captain Cummings. Captain Cummings flipped his lid over that, and I lost Captain Cummings forever. And I think about that every day. I think about losing Captain Cummings, and it just breaks my heart because I love that guy. He was a dummy, but he was funny as hell, and he was just another great advocate for ComicsGate. That makes me sad. But me and Doug actually got together and talked about everything. And Doug is not a gamma male. Doug doesn't hold grudges, and frankly, neither do I. I am more than willing to forgive and forget.
Well, like, people are just like, I know you're plotting and planning, and I was like, I've literally done like a dozen interviews defending you, or not interviews, like videos over the last year saying like, these weirdos are stalking Ethan, like all this sort of stuff. And it's just like, okay, if I disagree with you about like a particular tactic or something like that, it's like you said, it's like, I'm more than happy to DM you or vice versa and say like, hey, I disagree with this, or just like hash it out. But people can't seem to accept that like two dudes can just be like, okay, well, I have a principled disagreement with you here, but
it's not.
There is no way I'm going to like complete. Like I was talking about the body earlier. If your kidney is doing something on occasion that like you don't agree with, you wouldn't be like, go to the doctor and tell them to remove your kidney because it's important. So
yeah, I just to me, none of this is personal. This is all kind of my views about what ComicsGate is. They're my views, and I'm not. It's a difficult thing. It's a hard thing to kind of come to terms with. I don't want to exclude anyone, but I also want to make sure that the purpose of ComicsGate, at least from my point of view, what I think ComicsGate is stuck to, because it's important. I think it's for the health of the comic book industry. So when I say political books are not the best thing for ComicsGate, that's my opinion. But you can disagree. You can say, I like that stuff, and that stuff's cool, and I want to buy it. Yeah, and it doesn't hurt anyone. It doesn't hurt. The Trump books don't hurt anyone. They're funny. People enjoy them.
My position has always been that if an author is transparent about what they're selling you, and you're on a level playing field with all the other competition, then the customer can either reject or accept that. But what Marvel would do, they would take existing IPs like a Spider-Man or an Iron Man, and then they would insert the politics in that way. Or it was a bait and switch where you think you would be getting one book and then it was another. And so I just think in 2018, because ComicsGate was growing, there was literally, you had to have growing pains in terms of people figuring out, okay, what exactly is this movement? Where are we going? What's the trajectory? And of course, you're going to have random disagreements along the way. You're not going to agree on everything. But as long as you could, at the end of the day, realize that you're ultimately going in the same direction, which is better comics, better art, better storytelling, professionalism, all that sort of stuff. Like, to me, that's what I care about the most.
I do too. I just whoever's look. Let's just get the comic book industry healthy, and good ideas are going to win out. Let's see. Mark C says, "Why is Doug TeNaples emoji a sperm?" No, it's not. It's Dirtworm Doug. That was his nickname here. So, Dirtworm Doug. Vince Rush art, and by the way, it's not personal. I like Doug, but it does make me laugh. And the other thing is Tapeworm Doug, which I told him in private. I said that shit's funny, and he said I gotta agree. Vince Rush art says, Doug, good to see you on with EVS. God bless. Micah D2 says, for being demonetized, he gives me $5 for doing it right. It's not much, but I want to help. Yeah, you guys, your super chats help. Doug just said, I don't want to mess with you with the algorithm. No, say what you need to say. I would much rather, and I think the fans would rather just super chat and then get the truth out of you, and you just say what you want to say here. I think that works better. Glinzer says, please get a Streamlabs link. Big Daddy Google's taking 30%, and that's larcenous. Viva ComicsGate. How do you feel about that? I kind of feel like it's a privilege to be on YouTube, and I don't mind them taking 30%.
Yeah, I mean, if the thing that really irritates me is when, like, I'll use like literally like 5 seconds of a song, like my Journey song that I did yesterday. The outro was 5 seconds. They filed a copyright claim against it, and so they are the ones that are getting money for the 5 seconds that I used at the end of the outro, and that sort of stuff kind of like ticks me off.
That's weird. Yeah. Sometimes it's worth it. Like there have been songs that I've heard that I need to put in a video. And I know, even though I worked really hard on this video, it's going to copyright strike the video, but it
Right.
doesn't matter. You need it. It's for effect, and, hopefully people enjoy it, and maybe it'll pay off with your subs. Maybe you'll get some more subs out of
Right.
it.
If you could get an extra dozen subs off of 5 seconds of professional video or song, to me, I agree, it's worth it.
Yeah. Blackguard Forest says, going forward with ComicsGate, do you think it's possible to convince more artist writers working at the big two to work with people like you and Zach on future projects? We're behind you, but the industry? First of all, from my perspective, I'm not interested in working with other people. I'm not. I'm doing Cyberfrog, I'm doing Rainbow Brute. I don't want to work with other people. I've collaborated my whole life. I want the freedom to answer only to myself. Zach does want to work with other people, and he is. I mean, he's getting more people to kind of come out. As the industry, the thing about ComicsGate is it's going to outlast social justice warriors if we treat each other the right way. This is the thing. When I'm sitting here trying to, Edwin Boyette did that big live stream last night, which was wonderful. It got people talking, expressing their feelings about ComicsGate and how it may have they want to be part of ComicsGate, but it felt excluded in some kind of way. These kind of discussions, even though they're totally and completely soy based and embarrassing, are important. People need to feel like they're a part of this, because we do need to outlast the SJWs. And if we're fighting with each other and we're squabbling and we're everyone has their pride, nobody wants to forgive and move on, then that's what's going to happen. The social justice warriors are going to win. And no, there will be no chance of any of these artists and writers at the mainstream who are kind of right on the fence, and there are quite a few. You guys have to understand when you see people, comic book professionals, who are liking, the success of Doug TenNaples' Earthworm Jim. Those are the people that we're talking to. Those are the people who are right on the fence and thinking about doing this because it just makes sense. If we can stick together, if we can keep ComicsGate healthy, friendly, robust with its discussion, no more gay ops, no more infighting, and just try to get along. No more purity purges. None of this. I don't want it. I don't want to see it. I just don't want to see it. So if people say, do something about it, Ethan, do something. I'm not the leader of ComicsGate. I'm not. I don't want to tell people what to do. But I would say that if you care, if you love me, if you love me, Doug, is this getting too weird? If you love me and care what I think is stop fighting with people and work to actually be a solution to the divide. Forgive. And I would say to the people who maybe don't like me very much and want to fight with me still, stop it. Just stop it. You don't have to like me, but let's stop fighting. You guys can do your thing over there. If you have your your own little clique, and you have your belief system, and let's just stop fighting with each other. I mean, ultimately we move forward. Even if we're not completely aligned, we do need to kind of look out for each other, because the real enemy is the SJWs. They're the SJWs who are working right now to get Doug TenNaples and Billy Tucci's panel discussion on crowdfunding at San Diego Comic-Con banned, canceled. And if they can't do that, I'm sure they're going to get Antifa down there. It's a worry. So whose side are you on? Are you on the side where you want to actually stop stuff like this from happening, where somebody like Doug TenNaples, somebody like Billy Tucci can't sit down behind a table and give a lecture to a group of people who want to hear it about crowdfunding? You've got these idiots like Joe Glass over there, that weirdo, sitting there like, I'm going to be at the door. I'm going to be at the door. I'm going to watch who comes into that Nazi fest. Fuck you. Get away from us. You weirdos, get away from us and let us do our thing. We're only trying to save comics from you. If you don't like it, go away. Why are you harassing ComicsGaters? And why can't ComicsGate, which is now a significant and passionate and powerful movement within comics, Bleeding Cool said I was what, the 74th most powerful person in comics last year? We mean something. You know, we mean something. The mainstream has to even admit ComicsGate is a powerful force for change in comics. And, you know, why wouldn't you let these people get together and talk about this? So, you know, let's kind of pick our enemies a little bit better. You know, once SJWs have been, you know, removed, then we can argue about who's what and who's doing and saying this and that. But until then, I'd really like to see us kind of come together, stop with the fighting, stop attacking people, stop harassing people, stop with the weird memes. You know, when people ask to be left alone, leave them alone.
But yeah, to me, it's one of these things where you're already under attack from SJWs, and then you're going to form a circular firing squad and then like shoot on each other on a daily basis or weekly basis or whatever it is. And then people are like randomly asking me to join the circular firing squad. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, it's not happening. I mean, customers can do whatever and say whatever the heck they want, but I would just I always try and look at the big, like, let's keep our eye on the prize here. And if it is to basically create a parallel industry or our own industry or whatever, our own planet of good comics, like there are certain things that you just probably shouldn't do on a daily or weekly basis if you want to accomplish that goal.
No, if you want to make memes, go make memes of Renfamous. Go make memes of our enemies. That's what I'm saying. Our actual enemies. You know, do something like that. I just don't want to see people who are friendly, who just... I don't want to see people who I think mean well. And by the way, it only makes people more angry. You want to make people even more like upset and angry with ComicsGate, who used to be ComicsGate? Keep doing that. They're going to be unhappy, and they're going to cause more trouble. So, I would really like to see some change. Starting now, I would like to see some change. Blackguard said, or no, I read that one. Matt Hayes, thanks for $20. Says, #ComicsInvictus. Internet culture hasn't changed since AOL and Prodigy. Creators cannot control customers and vice versa. Don't forget The Good Night. Oh, The Good Night. Still available on Indiegogo by the wonderful Crystal McGee. Oh, I should have Crystal back on. I kind of like, I find these ComicsGaters and their campaigns, and I have them on for like a couple of weeks, and then I move on to other people. But Crystal McGee is great. I hope she's doing well. Darth Sabi says, sorry for being a donkey. Finally bought Cyberfrog. Excellent. Now buy Soulfinder and buy Jawbreaker's God King, please. John Chidester says, at the end of the month, you should change it back. Just make everyone soy boys all the time. Downshift says, new members are soy. It's like Rush Week. Yeah, that's how I felt too. But it's fun to play around. Michael Beacon says, I'm a new YouTuber. I do reviews of ComicsGate books as SJW Skeletor, parody of anti-ComicsGate weirdos. Next review is of Lone Star. All right, well, please point out the obvious gay subtext of Lone Star, because it's all over the place. Sweetcast says, two of my favorite ComicsGaters. Sweetcast, I think Sweetcast is basically your student, you know.
Clint, he's a good guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like him too. He's got your same kind of tone about him, which I appreciate. Matt Becker says it's dirt sperm, Doug. No, it's dirt worm, Doug. It doesn't need to be dirt sperm. Let's see. Dragon Lord is a new member. Sean Boahini says, hey, Doug, what do you think about Tom Holland suggesting gay Spider-Man?
Oh, sorry. I was reading your chat there. I actually covered that in the Journey video. It's one of those things where I just think these people are creatively and intellectually bankrupt. When you don't have anything to say, they rely on drastic changes for political brownie points as a way to almost make up for their lack of creativity. And so it's just one of these things where I don't care if there's a multiverse and you want to just randomly make LGBTQ plus LMNOP Peter Parker. But if you want to try and make the Peter Parker all of a sudden magically gay, like magically gay Iceman, like that's ridiculous. So first you're going to dissolve the marriage with a devil deal, and then you're going to make him gay on top of that. Like, come on now.
Yeah. By the way, me just saying no, it's not dirt sperm, it's dirt worm. It's now dirt sperm. That's how the internet works. I forgot. You got it. Once a meme happens, it's gonna happen. Well, I don't endorse that. Let's see. Dragon Lord says, "Can I fight with you, EVS? Stop eating pies." I haven't eaten a pie. I know you guys think I eat pies all the time. I did all my pie eating from Halloween to like New Year's, and it was a lot, Doug. A lot of pies. But you know what? It was peer pressure because these guys encouraged me to eat pies. And,
It's hard to turn down a good pie.
Dude, they're so good, man. They're so good. You get a nice apple pie. I eat it with my hands. I'll just take it out like a slice of pizza. Andrew's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, this is how to eat a pie. I don't know. Larry Romano gave me $10. He says, "For truth." Hey, thank you for that. Destruction 89, a dollar donation. Thank you. And then he gives me another $2. He says, "Pray the gay ops away, Ethan." All right. Well, amen. I would like to do that. Jesus, if you're listening, tell people to stop doing that. Inspire them, change their hearts. All right. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I really want to thank the large audience. I mean, Doug, we had 1,500 something, almost 1,600 people watching this whole time. Those of you who haven't backed Soulfinder, I want you to consider it. The link is in the is in the chat. You're at $23,134 now, so that's a nice boost. But Doug, what's the elevator pitch on Soulfinder?
Long story short, there's a major order of exorcists who all have to be combat veterans in order to be recruited, and they're taking on levels of evil that most of the world cannot fathom.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks great. Did you hear what I said there, Doug? I said it looks great.
Dave Dorman, Timothy Lim, Matt Weldon, and Brett, they're all doing awesome work. And now that all the pressure is basically on my shoulders, and it's up to me to deliver on the writing.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all. I've read your writing, and this is going to be a really, really good read. So those of you who are interested, go through it, check it out, look at the art, look at the pitch again. Find a good tier perk for you. I mean, look, $15. That's all you need to get the book itself, and then there are plenty of other perks that you can get along with that, including autographs. It looks like.
The team there's a team signed perk as well with myself, Tim, and Brett. But one of the things we wanted to try and get the price point as low as possible, so that's why we had that $15 tier.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, one of the things that people say about ComicsGate is the price is too high. And, I mean, I get it, but I think that, what I'm producing and what, Richard's producing, we're producing annuals. I mean, for $25, that's the annual Cyberfrog book. There's going to be maybe one a year. So $25 for an extra thick, super nice package that's signed. It seems like a reasonable price. These people are trying to conflate the cost of our books with, the pamphlets that you get at the comic book store. It's just not the same thing. I would love to go hardcover eventually. God, that's
actually my long-term goal.
Yeah. Like a collected edition though, collected edition, like all the best of Soulfinder, like all your issues of Soulfinder once you get 4 years in, So back Soulfinder Demons match. Also, let's put a pitch out for your boy Zach's Jawbreakers. Look at this, zooming right along. I really want to see him get to 6 figures, and he's doing pretty well. You guys are really coming through for him. $95,417 with 23 days left of his first month. And I mean, I think he made 404,000 on the first campaign, so I want to see him get to at least 500 this time in the first 2 months, and then just let it ride. These books, the success of these books are a statement. The industry's looking with envy. The beginning of War of the Worlds, it's like there were eyes that watched this planet with envy. Those are the SJWs. The Martians are SJWs, and they are watching us with envy. Believe it. Cyberfrog Blood Honey also in the chat. This is the 3rd variant cover, and we just passed $230,000 for it. This is going to be the regular variant cover. I think probably the most common one, the one that everybody's going to be able to get. I'm going to keep this in print so that people will be able to read Blood Honey as we move forward into Wrecked Planet. This Friday, the galley copies come in. It is agonizing waiting for this. I cannot wait to go see them. I'm going to go pick them up. I'm going to get 250 galley copies of Cyberfrog Blood Honey. And I don't know. I'm pretty excited. What that means is that they're gonna have a blank white cover, I believe, but the interior stuff is all gonna be in there. And then they're gonna, as long as it meets with my approval, they're gonna go forward and print. I don't know how many. It's something like 30,000 copies of this book. And then we've got the chromium covers and the regular covers. All being printed separately. They're going to be shipped over. This book's going to be put together. And then I'm going to sit down and sign them. And they're going to get sent out to you. Fulfillment is going to be a breeze. I know that because I am not doing it. Someone else is going to do it for me. And they are very, very good at what they do. So you guys are going to be getting your Cyberfrog Blood Honey soon. They're going to be beautiful. And then we'll talk about the next campaign. But it's Doug, these are strenuous. You know?
Yeah, especially doing this particular campaign, which is nothing compared to the level of what you guys are doing. It's like after my full-time job, and then you're basically have like 2 full-time jobs for 60 days. So, but it's worth it. I think it's worth it.
Yeah. It is. Watermelon Platypus says 30,000 copies. EVS originally hoped for 30,000. Yeah, I know. $30,000. Yeah, I know. It's pretty great. Slick Rick is saying, you keep telling me this print's going to be common as muck. No, it's just it's not going to be. You know what's going to be common as muck is the direct market version, which is going to come sometime next year. We're going to invade the comic shops, Doug. You know, flying the flag of ComicsGate. Got to do it. It's important. All right, so let me see. Just check real quick. One more time. We got a couple more super chats, or just one more. Boag says, Ethan Onasama, what's your opinion on weebs? Hey, listen, I love everyone who lives in a fantasy world. You know, anime isn't for me. It hasn't clicked with me yet. And I'm not saying it never will, but how do you feel about it, Doug? Are you a fan?
Sorry, I was reading your chat again. I'm responding to people who are like telling them thanks for tuning in. It was a question about weaves.
Weebs. How do you feel about anime?
Oh, weebs. My wife is actually really big into anime and manga, but I am not. And it's one of those things where I know like Tug and Yellow Flash have gotten into that. And I would just make a fool out of myself if I started to get into anime at this point in time.
Yeah, I would too. I want to fight their enemies though, because their enemies are they're despicable human beings. But yeah, I don't know enough about anime to talk about it, and that's a shame. But I admire people who do like it. I think it looks like fun. I'm just a traditional superhero kind of guy for the most part. And horror. I love horror stuff. Micah Curtis is here. The great Micah Curtis says, Doug, we should have a sit down sometime. Ethan, have a pie on me. Thanks for $5. I will spend it on something other than pie, Micah Curtis. I just can't. I can't keep getting fat. These people, all they talk about is how fat I am now. You know,
excellent. Well, I'm willing to talk to anybody about comics at any time. So just shoot me an email at douglasernst@douglasernst.blog, and I'd be happy to talk to you, Micah, whether it's offline or on a YouTube channel.
Downshift says, make a ComicsGate flag and have shops get a discount on purchasing ComicsGate books when flying it or in the window. That's a great idea. Darth Bobcat says, make the Micah Curtis Doug crossover happen. You guys haven't been together yet? I mean, I thought you'd be on each other's shows at some point.
No, I actually, I don't really do too many live streams. Usually if somebody asks me and if I have some advance notice, I'll do it. But for the most part, I don't do too many live streams.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you here, Doug. Thank you for joining us tonight. Guys, again, back Soulfinder and subscribe to Douglas Ernst. It's Douglas Ernst. That's the name of the channel. And we'll see you again soon. I'll have more videos up tomorrow.
Thanks for having me on.
Take good care.